all heard Jake, and he introduced himself to the Rotary Club. And as you may remember, he's the son of a Paul Harris Fellow and a grandson of a Paul Harris Fellow. And he tells me he's running Jefferson Healthcare right now.
Essentially, yeah.
Anyway, Jay, poor Jay. So anyway, today he is receiving his first Paul Harris Fellowship. And I'm here to install him because I'm a member of the foundation committee. And so without further ado, I'm going to just say that any of you who are also legacies like Jake, you have a better shot at getting into Rotary somewhere.
Thank you, sir.
You're so welcome.
Appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Speech.
Yeah, show us the. And do we want to remind everyone what it takes to become a fellow?
Oh, that would be great. If you could. Anyone from the foundation,
Please.
what do you have to do?
I asked you, as soon as you put food in your mouth. And I'm going to turn the camera on you.
Well, the goat is optional, but basically you have to make a contribution of well, you can become a sustaining member by $1,000 a year, and we really encourage sustaining membership in the club. If you put $1,000 and you donate it to the foundation, Rotary Foundation, then you become a Paul Harris Fellow. And then each time you reach another $1,000, you add on to your honor as a Paul Harris Fellow and supporting the foundation. And the work of the foundation is absolutely phenomenal. We're one of the highest rated charities under the, when you look at Charity Navigator, you'll see that it's a tremendously well-run organization. The funds are used around the world. The beauty of Rotary is there's all of these clubs in various locations. And so you can affiliate with a group of people who are service-minded, and then you can deliver, or the foundation can deliver through the various other clubs, projects, and just contributions to communities all over the world. And so you get Rotarians working together, you get money infused from the foundation to other clubs who then can match it. And it ends up being a very powerful way to create change in the world.
Well said. And if you're doing $5,000, get a parking place. And you get a free go.
Thanks so much, Greg, and congrats, Jake, and thanks for your contribution to the foundation as well.
Important. And we have Ron and Edward joining us online today.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much, Cherish, for setting that up every time. All right, so then let's start with announcements. Does anyone have announcements? I have one announcement. That is that Lee Hoffman is the new Assistant Governor-elect for our area 80. So congratulations, Lee.
As Peter said this right on an email, he said, "You really are glad for punishment, aren't you?"
Yay. Our very own Lee Hoffman's all grown up. Okay, any other announcements? No. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So John Baxter's here with us. I don't really quite need him as a guest because he's been hit with us quite a bit this summer. Well,
Yeah.
see it again today.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, so we have a big slate of things in August to participate in. And so I've sent that out, Cherish helped send that out over email. And you have it printed as a sheet if that's helpful. If there are any changes to this content, we would let you know right away. But as of now, this is pretty much the set schedule for August. There are a couple of things on here, or one thing in particular that's not a Rotary service project. But we felt like it was important for you to know about it and if you wanted to participate, and that's helping build the jump playground out at H.J. Carroll. It's a really, really cool project. So go online and learn more about that and then go help at that work party. We have our own work party at one of the food bank gardens coming up this month. Some other awesome speakers. So check out that list, put it on your calendar. Come to all of that stuff. And let's see, Happy Bucks is next. So who has Happy Bucks today? We have, oh, Lee, okay, great.
Nobody's happy?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm happy. Here's 2 happy bucks because of being actually elected as president, as the AG elect. It's really fun because I know Caleb pretty well. Caleb and I spent actually the last live pets. We spent most of the time talking to each other. So he's actually a really great guy to work with. It'll be fun because he'll be district governor at that time. So it should be, it'll actually probably be fairly hysterically funny. At least for me. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm really glad to be able to serve the district and our club.
Okay, I have a couple of happy bucks. Just the meeting last week, because my wife and I took a vacation out to Mountains. Beautiful, I've never been more, also makes an all, just amazing. Bunch of new plants planted this one.
Yay.
Any Mills, big happy? Bad.
Yeah, fast.
I've got one happy buck.
Oh, okay.
In keeping with the fish stories that are going around, I went out crabbing for the very first time last Thursday and limited.
All right.
Wait, did you get crab? I don't understand. Where's my crab?
Well, in the saltwater.
Oh.
It's out there.
It's in the
I don't know why I thought I was gonna eat so much seafood when I moved to the Pacific Northwest. I ate more when I was in Ohio. I don't know.
Isn't that the truth?
God.
So I'm gonna give my happy bucks for the kismet of running into Shelley at the Writers Conference and then having this opportunity to come to the noontime Rotary Club meeting, just to see how you do it differently than the sunrise meeting. So thank you for having me.
Yeah.
We're awake.
We are too.
I only got 9 crabs out of 10, so I want 10 cents back from my.
And I have, you'll only get 50 cents, but I have one happy buck. I'm happy. 12 of the family as a house guest this weekend, plus 2 dogs. Wow. And yeah, it was. And then another happy buck because they all left.
Awesome. Okay, we're done now. I did have one more announcement, is that for Warden Hospitality would like us to take a different approach. We had been providing you with sort of a phone number or link to the menu for Reveille if you wanted to order lunch. What they would really like us to do is submit an order form every Tuesday prior to the next meeting. So if you want a sandwich or salad, they provided the list of options. And this is the sign up sheet. So I'll bring one of these every Tuesday if you choose, and then I'll just hand it in at the desk. And then that sandwich or whatever you order says would be available at the cafe at 11:45 a.m. for pickup and payment. So
But their grab and go stuff will still be available.
grab and go still there. Yeah, it's if you wanted to make sure you get your selected menu item or just essentially just make sure that something's there for you, then you would do this. So this is, just know that this will be here every Tuesday. You would submit this for the following Tuesday. That's the method they would like us to take. All right. Yeah, Lynette.
Comment. I like this room.
Better than the other
I
rooms.
just feel like we're a little closer together, a little more able to talk and have some fun. Comments, whatever. I don't know, it's just,
Yeah.
2 cents, so just.
It was-
like the vibe in this room.
Totally. It was 100% full last Tuesday for our county commissioner panel. And so I could see us outgrowing it for specific speakers or meetings. Potentially that one was particularly popular and there really weren't any seats remaining. So, but yeah, I like how cozy it is too. And we still have the fresh air, which is the bonus.
Will they rotate us back and forth from that first row?
They said 3 meetings would be here and then we would return to the other one.
So the other one's bigger.
It's much bigger. Yeah, yeah. So we could request this one if y'all are liking the smaller space. So that's good. Yeah, okay, all right, y'all are into that? Okay, all right, so without any further ado, unless there's more announcements, a happy box or anything else, I'm gonna introduce our speaker. The thought you can really hear me. So Rufina is a fellow Rotarian, also a social justice activist and real estate attorney with a special interest in preserving agrarian farmland, supporting value-added farm-based food producers, and affordable housing. In support of healthy relationships in the community, Rufina also offers community meditation services as an alternative to costly litigation, and has started to do limited estate planning for intergenerational wealth transfers of real property. She is a former corporate biotech attorney and associate dean of and chief instructor of a culinary institute in the Midwest. And she's certified Qigong, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure I pronounce that correct. Qigong instructor and Tai Chi practitioner. She hosts a podcast called Food Love, the space between terroir,
Yeah.
and the Tao of food, where she explores the intersections of society, culture, food systems, current events, meditation, and art. She recently completed an artist in residency at Centrum and participated in the Writers' Conference and will share a current work in progress. She also serves as one of the many lawyers who offer limited legal counsel through the Clallam Jefferson County Pro Bono Lawyer Clinic and has served on the Jefferson County Farmers Market Board and the Food System Resiliency Task Force to address hunger with a more holistic approach to Jefferson and Clallam County families in need and food systems during the pandemic pivot. She has also spent more than a decade as an executive coach and consultant for leaders in education and government nationally. She has also served as the former Chief Strategy Officer of the Fort Worden Public Development Authority, which I believe is one of the reasons you moved with your family out here to Fort Townsend. And that's how I met Rufina originally, through the PDA. So Rufina are actually on the beach as a mother of a son who's the exact same age as my son.
Yeah.
So Rufina is a graduate of Columbia University School of Law and Amherst College. She's a member of Washington State Bar, Jefferson County Bar, New York State Bar, Massachusetts State Bar, and the Georgia State Bar Associations. So welcome the esteemed Rufina Guray.
Testing. Oh, it's not on.
It might need to be turned. It just is the red button showing there. Let me see.
Testing. Oh, good. Look at that. Look at that. Thank you, Shelley. That was such a nice introduction. I'm going to do a quick set change, and apologies to Jennifer, but for the piece I'm going to share, I'm going to do this, and I promise to put it back.
That's right. We'll put Jennifer over here.
Okay, good. Thank you. This might fall down. Okay, so I am one of those legacy kids for Rotary Club. It began in the Midwest. My father was a Rotarian for a long time. Rotary Club back in the Midwest, because it was on Lake Michigan, had an annual fish day celebration. We all celebrated the charter fishermen. We all went and competed in catching large fish. And all the children of Rotarians had to run fish and chips to anybody who asked at the stand. That was my job. And what occurred to me in what I saw happening growing up was that Rotary imbued all of us with this sense of deep community. Deep community that helped us make our communities resilient, and it also made us personally resilient. So that's kind of the focus of what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm going to start you off with this quote from Rotary International. We provide service to others, promote integrity, and advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace through our fellowship of business, professional, and community leaders. How many people are familiar with that? Yeah, okay. So I'm actually going to move this just a little bit more and tilt this way. So everything I needed to know to survive the pandemic, I learned from Rotary, okay? Everything that was hard about the pandemic began with Fort Worden, and everything that made me resilient was supported by relationships through Rotary and Fort Worden. And it was always about the individuals. So as some of you may know, I don't know, the layoffs that happened in the early part of the pandemic, I was one of them from this very room. And the craziest thing, I was on the beach the other day with 2 other parents of only children who are leaders in the community. And they talked about their experiences of going past their former workplaces and what sort of level of anxiety and agitation. And I said, it's really interesting because I don't have that experience. I mean, can you imagine feeling anxiety coming to the beach at Fort Worden if that was the case? And I said, I'm so grateful because this place is very special. The community we have is extraordinary. And some of the biggest questions around peace and how we get there, I think can be resolved by the level of intellectual power and compassionate spirit that takes place. And I think Rotary is actually a pivotal club to make those things happen. And sometimes we just need to reset. We need to kind of pay closer attention to certain things. And as I experienced this layoff, what I was grateful for was more time with family. It was a temporary layoff at first and then became permanent. And what I realized is that I learned all the things I needed to know. So it's a little bit like Robert Fulham's Everything I Needed to Learn in Kindergarten, I learned in kindergarten, right? So everything I needed to learn, I learned here. The first thing, lesson 1, show up, right? So show up, right? You show up here to this meeting and you show up in community, right? So I was laid off. I had some time. I was scrambling for a bunch of things because I was pandemic parenting, right? I had uncles who were doctors dying in other places in the country. And there was a community of people in need. And this 15-member organization started coming together. There were 15 organizations, Karen Affle, probably names you've heard before, Christy Kistler, all these leaders in community came together and said, we're going to have families in need. What are we going to do about it? We don't even have the systems in place. So that began the Food System Resiliency Task Force. She asked me to come on board because I had chef experience and because I understood the farmers market. And so I knew I didn't have a whole lot of resources, but I was just going to show up anyway with whatever resources I could contribute. And the intention was simply to become the community asset that the crisis needed, right? And I just would encourage all of you to do the same. I know there's just so much talent and so much great generosity of spirit in this room and on Zoom. So I just encourage you to do that. My podcast, Food Love, began because I recognized the incredible know-how and talent among the leadership of all these organizations. And the thought occurred to me, right, because I'm a little bit morbid. My mother is a retired OBGYN who used to tell stories of disease at the dinner table. And I thought to myself, look at all these powerhouses on these Zoom calls, and we're here trying to figure out what are we going to do in an emergency crisis? How are these systems going to deploy and distribute the food? Don't we even know how much food we actually have on the peninsula if calamity happens and we can't get food onto the peninsula, right? How many farms are there? What's happening as we have this urban development in all of these agrarian lands? So I said, you know what, I think we just need to archive some of these stories of people. And I began to realize that the Pacific Northwest is a particularly unique place where touching the wild when you go out for your hikes can inspire such quietude and reflectiveness and help you be more of yourself. So I was finding that in this time of great chaos, I was experiencing greater personal resilience from the time I had to be able to do that. So the second lesson is to use your words. And I just started the podcast interviewing some of these great people that I had met. And I would encourage you to listen to the Sarah's Faith episode on her 25th anniversary and the kind of work that they're doing with environmental protection and also agrarian land preservation. And I became inspired by them. And that's what I hope to share with people. The other thing was to communicate calmly, because in the midst of all of the chaos of the pandemic, layered on top of it for people like me, right, a person of color, was the racial divisiveness that was going on and the political divide. And I've got to tell you that Rotary Club is one of those places where you still come together despite any differences. And that part of community is central to community resilience. So for me, it became a greater place to double down. And how many of you know Chuck Henry? Anybody? Yeah, okay, most people know Chuck Henry, like so lovable. Chuck was one of the first people I reached out to, because here I was, I'm about to start up a solo legal practice in Port Townsend in a pandemic where I only know the people I know who I used to know at Fort Worden, right? And Chuck was just open-hearted and also willing to mentor. So that kind of community service is just a person in community is important. And his words affected me. He basically shared with me what his startup was like in community and shared with me that, yeah, maybe you don't know everything, but you'll figure it out, right? And that's sometimes all you need to move forward. And in the Chinese language, the word for crisis is a character that also means opportunity. Yeah. And so for me, this was an opportunity that I never had before to completely shape my whole legal practice. And what could I do focused on peace and equity and community service? So I developed a real estate practice where I was able to focus on agrarian land preservation, some land-backed reparations opportunities for Indigenous peoples, and also devoting a little bit of time, what time I could, to the pro bono work, helping with landlord-tenant relations. So, and when I say that Fort Worden has helped me remain resilient, some of that work around Indigenous relationship building began here. I made a call out when I was serving in my capacity for strategic initiatives to help bring back more relationship with the Jamestown Sklallam tribe. In fact, Shelley attended what I call the Legacy of Leadership Walk. So her organization really supported all those interpretive signs going up to the Chetsimoka, the Chichmahan Trail. And we wanted an opportunity for leaders to really hear the narratives that are included in that brochure that goes with that trail. And we did it on the 4th of July, right? And we also invited the singers and dancers of the Sklallam tribe to come here on the 4th of July, an opportunity to reclaim what independence means, because it's really more about interdependence, right? So that became a way of planting seeds using your words. And I would encourage each of you to think about how you can do that in this time. Lesson number 3, right? Hold out the evolution cushion. That's a hospitality idea from me to you. When people started talking about race in my work as an executive coach supporting the emergent leadership and established leadership of people around the country, both in education and in government, what I was noticing and observing was that since 2016, with the kind of rhetoric that was coming out politically, there was more dismissal, a reduction of people to their classification of race. Even established leaders in government, which is really shocking. Like I lived on the East Coast, I lived in the Midwest, and I've lived here. And sometimes it's harder. In the Midwest, people take you what kind of work do you do and how do you do it? Do you have a good work ethic, right? It's all that like farming influence. If you show up, you do the work and you work well as a team member, you're golden. People see the spirit of you. Rotarians see the spirit of you. On the East Coast, I was working as a pretty intense IPO attorney at that time. That was really something where how much work can you get done, right? That was all about productivity. So you hear conversations about that now too. Here in the Pacific Northwest with the sort of rampant liberalism and wokeness that people talk about, which can be confusing to some, sometimes there's sort of misplaced intentions, right? Misplaced intentions, and the impacts can be harmful. So holding out the evolution cushion means it's okay, you make mistakes, right? If we are in relationship, we can move past them. So the last lesson is connect with like-valued, not like-minded people, right? Because like-minded people might not help you grow. And so that's what happened in the pandemic for me too. And when I found like-valued people, right, who really look at people for who they are in the fullness of who they are, I found myself experiencing greater resilience and found myself being more creative in the realm of art and the written word. So I'm actually going to share with you some of the things that happened. We experienced a movement more into the wilderness by doing full-time RVing. We went out to the Elwha River because I had been inspired by the movie Return of the River, and then began what has been a couple of years of our own artist in residency, only to be affirmed by a Centrum artist in residency. And this is a piece that may be uncomfortable, but the practice of being uncomfortable in talking about complex things is important. And also seeing the dynamic relationship with parties on opposite sides of the problem. So there's a content warning here. I hope most of you have finished your lunch. And I'm just going to start in, and I'll say, in bocca del lupo. Anybody speak Italian? No, okay, can you guess lupo, lupine, wolf? Into the mouth of the wolf, okay? It means break a leg. I say that to myself every time because it might not be popular. Uvalde, the gift of sorrow. The gift of sorrow somewhere soars, swirling in uncertain loss. Salish sea spits me out to shore like broken glass, not yet smoothed over, not tumbled enough to absorb a heart drawn over the toe of green high tops, the last thing left her parents hold, laden and leaden, cemented that this their child, the one who loves so much, is gone. With so little to trace her to that irretrievable moment of falling in the battlefield of schools, instead of off a bicycle just a little too big, pain to be brushed away with understanding and a hug. Instead, she is drowned in sacrificial blood, briny and metallic, evaporating sorrow's mist, and yet countless parents bring their children to the altar of school again, where they will weep. Overwhelmed by tides taking its past climate warnings to inundate us all. Amidst the grains of sand, I feel the friction of existence wear away my edges. Sea glass comes in many colors. Most of us are yellow with a lack of courage, or maybe just brown like my skin and theirs, those small bodies whom officers neglected, ignored. We have become the beer bottle floating past the senator's lips at happy hour that he will lay waste to, throw to the rocks on the beach, expecting the sea to take us up while he talks about how we sure got him on those Second Amendment rights. All we can do is weep that we're losing this battle, or maybe lost it already, something we deny. Voices muffled underwater in the confusion of sound traveling through it and in it, eating up all the circuitry of my pounding brain and emptied heart to know each voice presented in the storming waters like ghosts inside me, peeling away my skin, wrinkled and loose like the faded label that was once bottle-born. Waves pound, hold and shake my grief loose, wild and separated into the natural awe over that collective of children, wondering about the rest, not safe. Like fireflies in the jar that is the vessel of my body, it all feels fragile. They speak to me. Live child, lift me up. I want to see higher. Cuddle me. Play with me. Blow bubbles for me. I want to run and pop them. Don't leave me. I'm scared. There are ghosts here. He wrings his hands. I'm not sure if my friends will come to play with me. I'm tired. When can we come back? Is it time to go now? Dead child. What's this? Why so red and wet, so cold? My body skyward now, wanting you to hold me once again. Teacher, drills? You can't drill for the day you die. Not any day for a day like this. How am I going to protect them all? How did we think we could? Not here. Not with my kids here. What about my kids? I didn't get to say goodbye, didn't get to say I love you. Me in observation. What is the razor-thin blade between the paralysis of knowing how a shooter comes to be and doing nothing? The faultiness of memory that forgets the pain of parenting until untimely death do us part. What of the stasis of inaction? All of it cuts like sharp edges of sea glass, including the sacredness and stupidity of faith in believing that asking what now is enough. Parent, somewhere she expected to go home, have a cookie, drink a glass of milk, talk about her birthday again with me because I had to work instead of being home with her. The senator's voice is the wind-driven swell that sends debris floating driftless. In some other body of water, some other untainted universe where we made better choices, we didn't have to hope that the children would make it through a school day. Surviving a school day was more metaphor than massacre. It was expected when school shootings seemed unheard of. Before Pandora's box gave a Sandy Hook and a hard-to-come-by promise, a mother could think that her daughter could make it through 4th grade, someday go to prom, graduate, feel awkward about embarrassing Facebook posts that celebrate all the ways of becoming. Maybe Mayate had never even held sea glass in her small hand, because Uvalde is far from this sea where we play. Somewhere in unreal time in that imagined moment before they and I began to tumble, tossed and rejected by the sea, one of those children was just talking to a friend before being ready to listen to the teacher of 17 years, of 23 years. Somewhere there was already a lost soul feeling so lonely, so disconnected, so angry, with a lisp and a stutter and an addicted mother, too hard to hold on to. So that growing into manhood only amplified his arrested development in the ultimate act of social media-induced attention-seeking narcissism and masked self-loathing. Fueled by invisible accounts with catchy names, bearing witness to power crimes in process. His mind broke like glass not yet tumbled, too sharp to pick up, supported by a hive with no moral compass and no algorithms of alert. Every day we practice denial at school drop-off, on perpetual repeat, a button stuck on replay, a keyboard key doing some sane invisible move, reflecting our addictions to the phone swipe on Facebook, Snapchat, or IG. The news, this next crisis, it's all too much. 300 mass shootings in 1 year and counting. I swipe later, maybe never. It cuts too close, forming a string of emptiness like a spacebar stuck in a never-ending staccato, going nowhere but to the end of an infinite page, anxious and ineffective, until someone stops it. Stop it. The impermanence of a child's brilliant life expands our connection in that floating feeling of grief, of burning up too fast, opening to the sky, hovering above and near, everywhere like the sun. A bubble bursted violently, not a firework or an anemone we could discover together, We have said yes to the seasonal and cyclical death of our most exquisite flowers, expecting that we can acclimate to their inevitable loss. We lay them bare on the altar defenseless, as if they were really too precious to last, yielding to that last moment of resistance against the weight of wilting petals. Before me, something else lisped before the wind, bursting capillaries and blood vessels in grotesque and viral form, impermanence incarnate, shifting reflections within the water that tumbles me again. In anguish for those parents, with their beautiful brown babies whose lives were going so fast already, between diapers and reading levels, their toes in grass evaporating like mist, any longer too hard to hold. Grieve with them and hold them in heart as water rains from our eyes, that their sorrow be what binds us to see the misery we've made. Tumble me once again, for I am broken, shattered glass to be tumbled. Yes,
Who wrote that?
I did.
Okay, I missed that little piece.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Thank you. I began it here at Fort Worden
Uh-huh.
in the Centrum Artist in Residency that I did. And then so this piece of artwork goes with this poem. And I learned the concept of ekphrastic art from Meg Haddock. I think you know her. I'm in an artist group with her that began in the pandemic by Zoom. So it's those relationships with people that kind of give personal resilience. And I'll be doing a spoken word event with more of these pieces that relate to more difficult things, textured things about you know, the crisis we experienced around race relations and other things. Yes.
That was wonderful. Have you worked with Straight Up Magazine at all?
They asked me to speak at a Straight Up Magazine event during the pandemic, and I did. My pieces are a bit long, as you can tell.
It's okay. I mean, I have a really long one last one. too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So sometimes it's just about the real estate in the particular periodical. Yeah. Thank you. Mhm. So do people know some of this work in here is a close reading of the news events, the heart on the green high tops. If you saw Matthew McConaughey speak, yeah. So the idea is to bear witness to some of these really tragic events that have, you know, peppered the pandemic experience. And sometimes it's just too hard to focus, but in the collective, we can. There's a great rabbi, Heschel, who writes, you know, when it comes to the crisis around race relations, he says, some of us are guilty. All of us are responsible. And when we can hold out that evolution cushion and we can use our words, right, and speak from a place of calm and acceptance, then we can move into these spaces where, you know, the values of Rotary can just take over. Like, is it true? Is it beneficial to everyone? These are some of the most important things at this time. And I know in many circumstances, we focus abroad and we focus locally. But when you look around the room and you think, you know, who have we invited? Have we invited more people? 9% of the demographics in our city of Fort Townsend are people of color. Some of them are small business owners. So what have we done to include them? And I'll tell you what, Chuck Henry like recruited me. Like once he talked to me, he recruited me. And I think that's also an important thing, right? Invite more people to the table and put out the evolution cushion. Okay, yes.
So we had a high school scholarship recipients came and talked, and they talked about how hard COVID had been, especially depending on which class it was, but in the high school, it was a brutal time.
Very brutal.
So your experience with younger children, and it sounds like you're part of a pretty big cohort of people with younger children. How are they doing?
Oh, they struggled tremendously. My son in particular went through something that I can only talk about, like pediatric depression. He got to a place of being so lonely for other children because we started to homeschool thinking that was the best option. And one day I was listening to this forgiveness forum where leaders were talking to each other about these war-torn country experiences. And he heard somebody talking about anger. And he said, I'm angry at you for taking me away from my friends. And then we realized, oh my gosh, he said, I'm lonely. Wow, you know, and he stopped saying, I love you.
So how old Victor? What's his name?
He was 5 at the beginning of the pandemic. And so we got him back into a school immediately. That was like our priority. We knew we were really badly off when he couldn't tell us that he loved his favorite elevated ice cream flavor. That was bad. That was like, ooh, this is serious. And we were really lucky because Swan School wasn't able to take him back right away because of limitations on numbers. But then they took him back when they could, and that was everything. That was a game changer for us. Yeah. Yeah, but I do have some experience with the leadership at the Port Townsend School District because of the diversity work that I've done with organizations. And I just offered myself as a community member asset and commented on their acknowledgement of harm statement. And that's when they reached out to me and they asked, could you do a little bit more with us? And so I just recently facilitated their leadership summit and really helped kind of facilitate their conversations around looking at a holistic approach to well-being, which includes sort of reevaluating disciplinary models and looking at the disproportionality of bias and the effect on discipline for children of color, students of color. So that runs across all the schools. And what we realized in part was that there's a coherence necessary across all 3 schools, right? So, you know, giving the gift of strategy and the gift of words, right? I just jumped into help. Yeah, but there's a lot to do there. And students need mentors, that's for sure. And they just need encouragement, honestly. Like, words of encouragement are huge. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, Rufina, I'd love to hear more about your work with food and in all of the ways that you heal through your words and your visual art and your law practice, and like you're a healer, I feel like, in many ways. So talk more about how you've seen food heal and food traditions maybe be a place where people of many walks of life can come together and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the first full year of the podcast, I was speaking about world peace through food in the podcast. And every guest I had, I was asking them to think about what recipe they would give to grade schoolers that might help them understand cultures differently, right? To be more open. Because sometimes, I gotta tell you, I have never met anyone who's come to a Filipino food gathering and not been excited, at least about the lumpia. Like those are their something to try, right? If you've eaten them, yeah, it's just, yeah, you can't help but feel good in the presence of good food. So I think really good food is disarming, right? We put our defenses down. We feel like somebody's taking care of us. We nurture each other. Every time I make food, I'm telling you I love you. Every time, right? A friend of mine just recently asked me, do you always prepare all your food like with like this chef mentality? And I'm like, yes, yes, because if the food looks to you like I cared about the fact that you came to sit with me at a table, right? Then you know I love you from just your eyesight. And then when you eat the food, you'll know that I took the time to season it the way that says I love you. Right. And honestly, like I do think that part of the sort of disintegration of the social fabric is in part because we are not sitting down and eating together, both as families and as communities and in school systems, right? When I was in high school, they used to make us sit with people we didn't know. And there was a faculty member who sat with us and made us eat family style. And one person would go out and get the food and bring it back to the table. And it was the service-mindedness about how you share food that really mattered. When I think about the crisis of the pandemic and food systems, broken food systems, where the people who are essential workers don't have the health care that they need to cover their living expenses, part of what we need to heal the system is to look openly at those challenges and to care enough to accept the responsibility for how we ensure right livelihood right? If we think that food is central to health and well-being, then we've got to work our way back. And that's sort of the strategic mindset of if we can do that. So, you know, healing systems holistically also means when it comes to our families in need, there has to be dignity in the process of receiving. That's a huge piece. How do we distribute food in ways that make people feel whole and feel part of a community? There were some really challenging things about how food was distributed before. Families in need would have to come and be supervised as they ate the food, like they were boxed in a cage of a lunchroom, right? And so in the pandemic with this food system task force, we made it so that different nonprofits could hold different parts of the food system. And the YMCA, really, they have to be commended above and beyond. They were producing over 3,000 meals and pushing them out the door. People could just come and pick them up. Not just that, the exceptional thing that they did was they distributed through getting their own vehicles to transport it out to the community. That is huge, because when you think about it, with gas prices rising, right? That's a huge thing. How do you fix that system? And the logistics of that, you may not think that you have something to contribute, but maybe you know something about the logistics of transportation systems, or maybe you know somebody who's going to buy another van, right? Or maybe you know somebody who's going to contribute funding to make sure that the YMCA can continue this, even if federal funding doesn't come through for them, right? Or maybe you know somebody who can lobby and say, hey, this is still really important. The pandemic's not over for everybody. It's not over for anybody. So attention and care really are the two things that can lead to real healing around the food systems. And then genuine connection with people, right? Always seeing the person, the spirit of that person. What does that person need to be lifted, touched, and inspired, right? To be at their fullest potential, whether or not they're going through something difficult. And so that's the importance, I think, of Rotary Club connecting in those ways and reaching out to the community.
Any other questions?
Anyone online have any questions?
Okay, well, thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so
I really
much,
appreciate your time. I should make one announcement. As part of this support of community, there's a BIPOC community of artists who have not often had their artwork exhibited or any of those kind of things. I've asked them to collect their artwork and show what art looks like as a form of resistance and resilience during this time. And they'll be showing and selling their books, their visual arts, some fiber arts, some embroidery, all at Thin River on August 12th from 5:30 to 7:30 and August 13th from 12 to 6. So I would really encourage you to come out in support of them. Okay, thank you.
Okay, y'all, that was incredible. Thank you so much, Rufina. Wow. Let's see. I think we don't have any 50-50 raffle, so I think we're just supposed to put our cash on the table, everyone. And have a great rest of your week. Does anyone have anything they're doing the rest of the week that they want to share with everyone? Something exciting?
No, but keep in mind that there's chip sealing on 101. So if you plan on going west, plan extra time to get there or come back, because yesterday it was a 2.5-hour wait.
Yeah.
So I had staff that actually spent the night at the office
Oh my gosh.
so that they could make, their
Wow.
shifts. And so, yeah, so just keep that.
Hot tip from Cherish.
Yeah.
Avoid 101.
And then
It's like between Swim and to Disco Bay. And, but the backup, and the backup was like going south to down 101 towards Kilseen. And so, yeah, it was, so check Google Maps. I always recommend that if you use the traffic feature, if it shows red, it's backed up and stopped.
I think it's good setup, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's supposed to go through the weekend, although they were saying they were trying to speed it up, but
Rufina, one other thing, if folks want to listen to Food Love podcast, or if they want to check out any other aspects of your work, where can they go?
You can go to, oh, sorry, you can go to iTunes and it's called Food Love, the space between terroir and the Tao of food. I also have a website where you can find the podcast on one of the pages. It's called Recipes with Rufina. So I also have a couple of recipes out there. I'm always interested in sharing. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Great. Yeah, please do check that out. All right, y'all. Have a great week. And we'll see you next week. Thank you.